we were spending a lot of time with the 80% of our practice, which was only yielding about 20% of our net. One of the things that has to happen is our profession has to open up to specialization. It would make money for doctors, basically, take care of a lot of patients that are not getting the care that they should have today. This is a bigger step here. This is a change in habit and behavior.
Thank you for joining the Dare to Be Different podcast. My name is Nick Despotidis, and I've committed to interviewing who I view are the leaders in our profession. Today, I have the esteemed pleasure of speaking with Dr. Cary Herzberg. Dr. Herzberg is the founder of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. He's also the longstanding president of that academy. He's a private practitioner. He's a leader in our profession, especially within myopia management. So, Cary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, it's welcome, Nick. It's always a pleasure to talk myopia, with us together like this.
That's
again.
right.
The old times we've been through the wars, so to speak. So
yeah, yes, we have.
And we're showing it too. Physically. And
I know. It's getting a little grayer.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Well, it's been a while. But Cary, I wanted to start by you telling us, how does your practice look today? Instead of starting historically today, what does your practice look like?
Well, an interesting question, and I'd love to answer that. This is my 51st year in practice, by the way.
Oh,
I've had 50 years. Yeah, I know. 50. Can you believe it? And I talk to my patients many times. So they're going to professional work. As you know, we deal with the smartest patients in the world here. They're all myopic and nearsighted.
That's so true.
And advanced degrees, ophthalmologists, everything else, ortho-K patients. So
that's right.
Yes, we're actually merging our practice in this year. We're actually this is it. Yeah, I know. And so I picked out a colleague in the area, Dr. Carolyn Cho, I've been training for a number of years, and so we're going to just transfer everything over to her practice, and I'll be there on occasion to do that. But yeah, it's a landmark year for us because after all this time, we're moving on, so to speak.
Wow, that's something I didn't know, and I guess you deserve the break for sure. But tell us, for goodness sakes, and we'll get into it shortly, but tell me, maybe 5 years ago, were you accepting vision plans? Were you specializing in myopia management? Do you have a dispensary? Give the listener an idea of what your practice looks like.
Yeah, we haven't done vision plans for almost 20 years. So we dropped that in the early 2000s, and we've never really looked back on that. So we have a specialty care practice that's dealing mostly with myopia management. 90% of my practice is myopia. The rest of it's scleral lenses. We do odds and ends, different things, specialization kinds of things. I get referrals from other doctors, to keep us going and things like that. But yeah, it's no vision plans. So we're...
Yeah, and it's amazing. We are in totally different demographics, but our office also dropped vision plans in the early 2000s and never looked back. Were you scared? I'm just curious. Were you scared? Were you nervous when you made that decision? What motivated you to say, I'm not going to do it?
Well, particularly, we were listening to our staff as well as looking at our patients, and both of them had problems with this thing. And our staff was overburdened with the vision claims. They were spending more time. I remember my wife was the office manager and runs the business end of the office, was going in the middle of the night to file insurance claims. I mean, because you couldn't it was a dial-up online. So you couldn't do that during the regular hours. It's too busy. So she had to go into work. I mean, it's stuff like that. You don't even think about that offhand, but that's true sacrifice. I mean, to have to do that. Yep. So I was listening to that. We were listening to our patients who were telling us, our private pay patients, the Ortho-K myopia management part of that. They're saying, you don't spend any time with me anymore. I'm missing that. And we were spending a lot of time with the 80% of our practice, which was only yielding about 20% of our net. So it was a pretty easy decision.
It wasn't easy for us, but you're 100% right. And I tell people, when you really decide to focus on myopia management, you have to be all in. If you start squeezing your Ortho-K checks in between patients, you're going to be rushing your Ortho-K patients, your private pay patients, and that's just going to sabotage your office. It's going to undermine the office.
I mean, how can you work on preventive care, really, what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, right.
Unless you spend time. I mean, everybody's got the model wrong here. I mean, I'm looking at what's going on right now, and they just don't get it. I mean, it's just their approach is wrong. And so it's going to fail because it's not geared to teaching doctors how to survive on this model. I mean, you're right. doctors are brought through school, and they're looking at it from a standpoint, see as many patients as you can within the given period of time, and that's bankrupt. I mean, this is not good human care, patient care.
Yeah. So expand on that. It's the first time I've heard you say that. You said the model's all wrong. We're being taught. Are you talking about myopia management or just optometry, eye care, everything?
The whole thing. The shebang. The whole thing. My 2 cents worth. And I've talked to a number of my colleagues about this too, just to expand on it. But today, the doctors have to have a support model. I mean, they don't get myopia in school. They get a secondary education, right? And so they come out and they're built on basically the vision care model. I mean, that's what they're built on, seeing a lot of patients. So they need to be retaught almost. The main resources that we have in the field need to be concentrated on teaching them how to, with things like you do, Nick, like placing a system in place where they can actually see this generation of income that they're going to get. Because after all, it's going to be a huge expenditure of time to grow this practice. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that in the past.
We have. And I think you're 100% right. And I think everybody has come to terms with, we're all going to be employees if we're not careful, because if the model is just be busy, that's why older practitioners are selling to private equity. And unfortunately, some of the younger practitioners are hoping to do that in 20, 30 years.
I know, right?
And the schools maybe haven't unconsciously or consciously adopted that model. Is like, you know what? The private practice is not going to exist. And nothing could be further from the truth, in my opinion.
Well, it's our money that's buying it. I mean, the money that we pay, that the vision plans are making off of us, they're naming, halls in our universities after themselves, because they're donating our money that we've allowed them to take. And it's crazy. So yes, so as I see it, I don't think we're doing this myopia thing correctly. I think we're spending a lot of time talking about it, but its implementation is near, it's not very good. It's been kind of embarrassing to look at how many doctors are actually doing myopia management today, even with all the time and expenditure we've made on it.
I just couldn't agree with you more. It's the first time I've heard you say that. And I'd like to kind of get back to that, because I really want to get into your history. You are the founder of the American Academy of Myopia and Orthokeratology. I'm sorry if I mixed it up. The AAOMC.
It's a lot of letters.
There's a lot of letters, but I've known you from the Global Symposium. We were in Montreal, 2002. I'm not sure. Maybe we were in Toronto, rather.
Toronto,
And you came up with this idea, and it's the first time I heard you speak, first time we met. I don't know if we met in person, but I heard you speak. And the passion from you were trying to garner up an audience, a following, because I remember this day. If you remember, the president of Paragon was on stage at one point, Joseph Cary. The president of Bausch and Lomb was also there, and they both were presenting their products. Do you remember that?
Yes. Exactly. Yes, I do.
And what they were feeding us at the time was that we've done these patient market surveys, and we should be charging. It's the sweet spot is about under $1,000. I think it was $900. I don't remember. And even though I was dabbling on it, I knew that was dead wrong. But I was quiet. I was passive. You were not. Why don't you join in? Because you really went for it, just like you just did earlier.
I was called on that. I mean, that I had to go. Yes, we have. It's been an interesting. Yes, I was called on to the president's office on that. Jonathan Jacobson actually called me in to speak to me about how that was so inappropriate to do what I did, and they whatever things were. I mean, Jonathan's a great guy, but at that point they threatened us everything else with the pulling support, and Bausch and Lomb has been in the early days was a great supporter of ours. But you're right, and I couldn't. I mean, just because they had the podium doesn't mean that they get a chance to send this propaganda to our doctors, because they can influence people just dramatically like that. And so something needed to be said, and I said it, and
what did you
don't
say?
regret that.
What did you say? Why did you?
I said you have no business telling us what to charge for our care services and care, and that goes with VSCPs or anything else. I mean, seriously. This, it's still free. I think it's still free enterprise out there, and the doctors have been trained enough to know how to do that. And so, yes, I just spoke one up for optometry, basically for our profession and for myopia management in the early days. Yeah.
And I remember that like it was yesterday. It's probably 20 years ago to the day, somewhat. And I couldn't agree with you more at the point, but you took it one step further. That's when you founded the academy, correct?
Right. Well, we actually had the academy was in place at that point, but
It was. What
yes,
was
it
it called?
was.
What was it called at that time?
Orthokeratology Academy of America, actually, OAA.
Okay.
And so,
And what year
so
did
it
you find did you found that academy?
2002,
2002.
2002.
Okay. And
Yes.
when were we in Toronto then? Was it 2004? I
No,
don't remember.
no, it was 2002, but we were in Toronto for that meeting 2004. That was
Okay.
later on. Yeah,
Okay.
that happened later on. And then we had a rerun of that too, and later on in our history where they actually used our meeting site to dictate what you should be charging for these services.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is something we fought hard for, so that we had that right to decide, not the industry.
So
So
what drives your passion? I could just see it. They say, Nick, you're passionate, I'm passionate, but it just
you are.
pales in comparison to what you do, because you've led all of us. The difference between the academy that you founded and every other imitator, if I may say, out there, is we're clinicians. We're proud to be clinicians. We listen to the scientists, but we also share what goes on in the exam room. But yet you had to endure patient skepticism, certainly medicine skepticism, companies, like you said, trying to influence you with their dollars, but you were never deterred. You never deterred. What drives you? What was pushing you through this 20 years?
My colleagues,
your colleagues,
guys like yourself, my colleagues who supported me. I mean, Nick, this is like, we could go to war with these. I would take these people in the trenches with me. This was the way it was. I mean, in the early days, we had like a little over 100 of us were gathered, but we had 100 that we could take to a meeting, and they produced for us. And Paragon, for instance, tried to compete with us for a while because they didn't like the fact that we were calling ourselves Orthokeratology Academy. And so they wouldn't work with us. You talk about the things we see today. And so we did it on our own, but I could count on those 100 colleagues of mine, 100 plus colleagues, to show up and do their thing. And they did. They supported us, right? Just it was amazing. You talk about encouraging that. Yeah.
And I was part of that competition, or whatever you want to call it, 2006, because I fit a lot of Paragon lenses. But the difference between what they were trying to establish and what you had is true dedication. You felt it. Ortho-K for you is much more than myopia management. What is it? What is it about it that gets you so fired up?
It's the most amazing thing I've ever done as a professional. I mean, you change lives. I mean, one of the reasons why I went into pediatrics was because I connect with my patients as you do. We talk, we know they're friends too, and other things, and we get to know them. And I couldn't sit there with a geriatric population and watch them get worse. No matter what I could do, they were deteriorating. So I decided to work with peds. And these kids, you change their lives with Ortho-K. I mean, they use words like life-changing. These are from 8-year-olds. They're telling you these things.
That's right.
It's just and then they come back later on, Nick, later on in life, 10 to 20 years later, and they tell you the same thing, what a difference it's made in their lives. And these are people who've now grown into careers. They're doing amazing things themselves. Yeah. So, I mean, when can you touch another human being like that? I know that we do it, and that's one of the cool things about some of our medical skills and things that we can use. But this is one area, I think that's just I find it just amazing that I can do this, and I do it, and I'm always excited each new patient, no matter how many times I've done this thing. It's exciting to see those that patient respond like that.
Yeah. So I have to agree with you. I mean, I see patients. I'm blessed that I see patients now that have been in lenses over 20 years, and they've graduated from Ivy League. Like you said, they're the smartest and brightest, but they always thank me for not only helping stabilize their sight and getting rid of their glasses, for just taking the time to speak to them. Because in healthcare, we're missing that, right? Where nobody has time to say, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? What do you aspire to be? Just to talk with them. And that's what they're thanking me about as much as their refractive error correction.
My patients are telling me, particularly in medicine, are telling me, I want what you do. This is where I want to go. I want to to have a specialty where I can work with the patients like you've done with me. We followed me over all these years.
Yeah.
So it's exactly that. I mean, this is another thing that we do that drives the passion is we're subverting the profession. We're actually changing. We're actually, it's a little bit of a terrorism in a way, because we're taking the mindset that's out there. We're trying to change that. We're trying to change that mindset that our profession has into something quite different. So I go at this thing as a point of that I'm trying to change the structure of this for the better. I'm trying to create something that's more user friendly for doctors and patients, and something that we can actually do for our patients is pretty darn cool. So I look at myself more in that respect.
There's no doubt
Tearing down
about
the
it.
walls.
I mean, I have a VT background, vision therapy background, and seeing kids
Yep.
improve with a convergence insufficiency, a strabismus is really incredible and gratifying.
Yeah.
But man, when you have a 2400 child and in 1 week they're able to read 20/20 by this gas permeable lens that I've created with the help of amazing people, obviously, is just like you said, you never wake up from that. You're like, always, holy cow, that is quite amazing.
So doctors ask us, well, what do you do about ophthalmology, right? I mean, because ophthalmology, gosh, I remember back in the day, we used to talk to optometry students. They sound like ophthalmology students, right?
That's true.
I said, how could you do this to the cornea? Well, guess what? I now have ophthalmologists that are wearing Ortho-K lenses. I mean, we're changing the system from within, right? We're replacing the old guard with something new and different that we've shaped. And I've got ophthalmologists that tell us, I want to wear Ortho-K forever. I don't want to do LASIK,
Yeah.
So we love it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because I have a number of physicians and one ophthalmologist who's young, and she still wears them. I said, you're going to get a lot of flack. And she goes, well, I do or not. The topography looks good. They're looking at my cornea, looks good. And I've been doing this for 20 years, Dr. D. So, you're right. We are changing the system within. I've never looked at it that way. I just take pride that she went into a field similar to mine, if you will. The fields are blending a little bit. I have to say the walls are, and thanks to you, the walls are slowly coming down. There's no doubt about it. On your board, we have Dr. Koffler, who you would bring in these medical professionals.
Bruce and I had a lot of fun times in China. I mean, if you talk to him about ask him about that, we had some great events. I mean, okay, so we've done all this, right? And it's been a career, but it's been, I mean, who else would live a life like this? I mean, it's just like, this has been the most amazing journey, right, Nick?
Yes,
I mean, I've done all these things. We've done all these things, and I've been everywhere, and we've shared that time with our colleagues and stuff, and they've invited us into their homes, and it's just an incredible experience. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that, right? As a life. So
you brought up China, and I want to give you credit. Somehow you have to talk about leadership, because to me, you epitomize a leader. You've taken something that was scattered and you galvanized people worldwide, globally.
Yeah.
How did you do it? I remember the first few meetings, you, Matt, your wife were traveling across the country with handouts in your cars. I remember at 6:30 in the morning when I'd go to the gym, you were taping up these posters onto doors for testing that you were going to do. You were seemingly a one family show. How did you lead us all to where we find ourselves today?
It was by taking risks. It's by not listening to the conventional wisdom. I mean, if people tell you this will never happen and you just do it, you just know in your heart, this is the thing to do. And the world, and they were ready. I mean, China was ready from when we came. I mean, Professor Shea and the rest of them, it was an amazing journey. They were ready for us. They were looking, they were saying, it's about time,
Wow.
And we were told ahead of time, it's not going to happen. But so it's just, it's taking that risk, and I think that's our lives speak for that. It's just going out there and taking that chance. And it in your heart of hearts, this is the right thing to do. And so they were ready for us. So
yeah, well, I don't buy that. I think you took charge. They were ready. But when you made this whole global society, having speakers, having the PhDs that would speak to us early on, like Earl Smith and so many others, would educate us on the theories behind why this lens is slowing down myopia management. And now axial length and different designs, it's incredible. It really is incredible what you've accomplished.
I remember listening to Professor Tan, Donald Tan, Singapore National Eye Institute, at our meeting in Orlando. I mean, talking about atropine low dose, this is low dose, at
Yeah.
our meeting,
Yep.
how cool is
Yep.
that? So
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
And you've
Where do we get a chance to do that as practitioners? Where do we get a chance to be in that position? I mean, today. So you look at that and it's just blessed. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Let's fast forward today, because you brought up a topic that I think about a lot, because I do work with younger ODs, and I'm always wondering, how many is private practice going to last? We'll talk about that. And number two is the point you were getting at. There's so much buzz right now about myopia management. You can't open up an email without some symposium or some product or something. And I'm agreeing with you. We're teaching this all wrong. And I visualize in 10 years, although we'll be aware of the myopia epidemic and we'll be aware that there are products to help slow it down, I'm not sure if the average clinician is set up to do it right.
They're not. And further, they don't there's a lot of skepticism out there about the diopter so improvement you can make in a human's life as far as doing myopia management, the numbers that they come up with. Yes. And doctors look at that and say, well, what's the difference between a 3 and a 2 diopter myope, or a 4 and a 2 diopter myope, kind of a thing. I think that does exist out there. I think that's a problem for us, because the justification, they don't see it. And I think a large portion of our community is like that. So that's why you have such a low uptake of this thing. And the other thing that happens is that we're not able to communicate like you and I have done, like taking that progressive myope, that young Chinese or Asian patient, the Indian or whatever it is, and taking that patient and taking them at early ages and just stopping this thing. I mean, we're not talking about the diopter anymore. We're talking about, we've learned this because we can do axial length now, but finding out that this patient who has no right to be this, under 25 millimeters, right? Or under 26, whatever the case may be, when you saw them, they were already 4 or 5 diopters of myopia because parents brought them in. But we've done this for them. I mean, that's not the diopter anymore. That's like, that's even more of a probability game. I mean, I look at my patients that I take care of, the thousands and thousands of them, and they're reasonable. Most of them are reasonable, right? I mean, they're in a point where that, and I tell the parents too, I said, this is a long eyeball, but it's fair to say that we've done it at this point because it's under 26 millimeters. And how can you even, that's an amazing thing that we've done for this patient. That's what's being missed here. The idea that grabbing, that human being early and starting the treatment, whatever it is that you're going to do, you're going to change an outcome. You're going to make a big change in outcome, not that diopter. It's going to be even more than that.
Yeah. And we're definitely showing that. I think getting back to where you began with is practitioners need to spend the time with these parents who you call the smartest parents in the world. I've never heard you say that, but they are. But and they want questions. And
they
if
have
you're
a lot of
trying
questions.
to rush them, I don't care if you're filling them with a soft multifocal or putting atropine in their eye or orthokeratology, they have a lot of questions, don't they?
They do it, and they should. And
they should.
Yeah. And I'm not, I'm glad to answer all the questions I have, because they'll ask is because this is, I'm in that situation where I'm not taking, vision care plans. I don't have to see a patient every 10 minutes. I'll spend as much, I have limitations, but I'll spend a lot of time with that parent and the child and go over everything with them and make sure that they understand just exactly what this means. This is a big step for them. I mean, they're doing something that's not a natural thing for them at the moment. Our background has been just progressively increasing myopia over time in glasses or whatever, contact lenses, whatever it is. This is a bigger step here. This is a change in habit and behavior. And so we as colleagues, eye doctors need that, and the patient needs that background too. It's no different.
Yeah. And
it's a big step for everybody.
I don't know where this myopia management is going to land. I really don't in 5-10 years, because everybody's hot and heavy on it, but they've been hot and heavy on dry eye and Demodex. They've been hot and heavy on nutraceuticals and its relation to maybe macular degeneration and things. And then it weeds out. Right now, this presbyopia management, which I just get such a kick out of it. Presbyopia management now is a topic in the journals. Where do you think it's going to land?
Specialty care.
Specialty care. It's going to stay where it is now, right?
It's going to be a niche. Yes. I think you're going to look at it a lot like orthodontia and dentistry.
Yes.
One of the things that has to happen is our profession has to open up to specialization. Yep. We have to open up optometry to specialization. If we, and this sitting here with it, if we did that, that would expand this profession amazingly. It would make money for doctors basically, and take care of a lot of patients that are not getting the care that they should have today, because basically you can't, specialize in everything. And you're not going to do
You
everything.
can't be everything to everyone. You just
No.
can't.
Yeah.
And you can't provide the quality of care. So I agree with you. I think there'll be a select few that enjoy spending time, that make the difficult decisions of dropping insurances. How long do you spend in a visit? How many checks do you see an hour, if you don't mind me asking?
We see usually 2 exams an hour, and I'll do it between 3 and 4 Ortho-K follow-ups. I mean, it's all Ortho-K, it's
Yep.
nothing else.
Yep.
I've had doctors come in and they're just like, do you see any other patients? I said, not usually, just all myopia management Ortho-K all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I've had doctors complain about that too, because they said, well, I don't want my Saturday mornings occupied with, with my patients sitting there waiting for their follow-ups. I said, what do you mean? This is like cool. This is like the best stuff to do, so it's, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the other thing that's got to be talked about too, is because this is when you talk about myopia management, we're not talking about dabblers here,
No.
right? We're not talking about people that do it every once in a while. This is a totally dedicated practice to myopia management. And that means you're going to be, if you're doing it right, you should fill that practice up with myopia management patients. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing. And that's the other thing that will keep this as a specialty, I believe.
I agree. I mean, my practice, I've never been to your practice, but it seems to me I see patients only Ortho-K 4 days a week. I work 3 days a week. Ivan sees patients. My other partner sees patients, but we do 3 checks an hour. That gives us just enough time to assess the fit, to make sure we clean up any protocol that the child might be lacking, but really to talk. Do you talk to them about screen time, outdoors?
Oh God,
like that?
Oh God, yes. I used to teach computer vision back in the 2000s. Yeah, ergonomics is just it's like a disaster. I mean, no one talks about ergonomics anymore, and it's just a huge deal. Because even dry eye, you want to start with dry eye, we could spend about a half an hour talking about ergonomics and dry eye.
Right.
But yes, we spend a lot of time, Nick, on all the different topics, habits that the kids have and what they need to correct and other things that they need to do. And usually what you're doing is you're sitting there with the patient, and the parent is just starting to tear up a little bit, because they've been on this fight for how long, and the kids don't listen to them. They don't. They have all these peer groups that are overriding all what the parents are trying to tell. And the parents have been there before. They've watched their vision deteriorate. They don't want that for their child anymore.
That's correct.
And so you end up supporting that viewpoint. I mean, the kids listen to the doctor, so you end up supporting it. Yeah, and you get a lot of parents who are just like, they almost, it's hugging time almost. If it was in COVID, we could probably do that.
Yeah.
But you're supporting that viewpoint, that they're coming from. That yes, you need to, I mean, what is this? No sleep now? It's just amazing.
But like you said,
these bad habits.
You have to advocate for the parents, because you're right. I have a 4th grader that goes to sleep at midnight because he has too much homework. And I have someone that's sleeping with their phone or playing video games until 2 in the morning. The parents have tried, but it's nice when a professional says it in not a condescending way. Listen, this is not good for you. And parents appreciate that. On that note, do you advertise? Like, how did you build this myopia control practice, if you will? Do you advertise? What type of advertising do you do?
Don't do any advertising. We actually built this by working through our patient base and word of mouth and things like that. Talking with our patients. And I used to go out to the Chinese schools, to and talk back in the day. That we had to help that as well. But no, we built this basically working, within what we had. What the doctor actually brings to the table, you can actually make this happen. You just had to be specific about it and look at your, what your patient base looks like, and then actively communicate with it.
Yeah, we do the same thing. People always ask me, do you have a brochure, Nick, that works? Do you have an ad that works? And the only thing that I have found that worked, that allowed me to see myopia management every day, including my partners, is, like you said, you earn that trust from parents. And it's quite easy. It's just spending the time and talking about topics like sleep and talking about topics like cell phone use, that they say, God, this is a different type of doctor. He's taking a few minutes to vocalize what I worry about every day.
Within the first couple of minutes, they realize that if it's a new patient, they just walked into something that they, and I will mention it to them too, that you have probably never heard any of this before. And they just kind of shake their head like, yeah, this is like and it's been on their mind, but no one's really addressed it.
Yeah.
And so Newton, I worked with Newton Wesley for a while,
Oh
and
my gosh.
actually ran his foundation, the National Eye Research Foundation. So that was an experience. But Newton said, "Make a legend of yourself,"
Wow.
which is what we're doing, right? I mean,
No,
we're making ourselves into legends.
You're doing, because you built something that is going to supersede you. And I mean that sincerely. We've butted heads in the past, and maybe
Yep.
because we're both chiefs and we were both passionate about our viewpoints. But the difference between you and me is you have an indomitable spirit that I really haven't witnessed in any person that I know of personally. You charge ahead no matter what. Mistakes, no mistakes, stepping on people's feet, you don't care. You say what you feel is best. And I think you've earned the respect of your colleagues. And you could see this, the academy is functioning without your direct involvement. And
Right.
it's because of what you laid the path. I mean, someone had to do it for vision therapy, and you did it for our profession. And I want to give you tremendous accolades for that.
Well, that's very kind of you, Nick, to
No,
say
it's
that.
true. It's very, very true. It's very true. And if you were to give the listeners one final advice, like if you really want to specialize, what does it take? What does it take to specialize?
I would, the thing I tell my patients mostly is be true to yourself. I mean, really, and we're not not everybody, this isn't for everybody.
No,
right?
it's not.
And be true to, honor who you are and be true to yourself. And if you want to be happy in life, basically pursue something like this, pursue it. Then you just can't, there's fears, other things, you have doubts all the time. But if this is the right thing for you, then do it. If this is something you feel comfortable with, and you like helping people in this fashion, in this manner, and it's a total immersion in practice for this, then go for it. Yeah, I said, don't be that at that point in life, right, when we get to be like ourselves and older and say, well, I wish I'd done that, done this, right?
And
go for it.
Yeah. And I gave a lecture last night, and I talked about regret, and that we can, what I call, digest success. We have a lot of successes in life we forget about, and they fade away. We certainly have a lot of failures. They also fade away with time. But regret, when you should have acted and you didn't, like drop an insurance plan, make a commitment to a specialty, regret, we just can't digest. It's like, I should have, but now it's too late. And I would give the same bit of advice. Be all in. Don't be afraid. It's okay to be afraid, but don't let that paralyze you.
Right.
And make a commitment. I think it's the only way to succeed in any specialty is be all in. We can do anything, but we can't do everything.
No, we don't want to, actually. This is, I mean, talk about it. For you and I, myopia management is like, I can't imagine, and doing anything else. It's just like, this is a total immersion. So I mean, go for it. We need our younger colleagues to sign up for this and start doing this. So it's, and that's the only way we're going to actually grow at this point. And that's the way we've always grown. We need some of those diehards. I look for them all the time. People like ourselves. You can just catch the spirit in them.
Yeah, but now they're getting younger, thank goodness, because
finally, right? And mostly female too, which is really good. Mostly women are coming up. We for the longest time we tried to grow that in the academy, and it was a male dominated thing for the longest time. But now you finally see that, and I couldn't be happier.
And the true leaders, I mean, all of us, just youth in general, there's something to be said about youth. They're smart. And that's the other thing about myopia management. I find it's constantly challenging me. Just when I think I can manage fitting a lens, I get a topographer that I really have to study, or a design I need to study, or now this whole science of axial length is very challenging. It keeps me on my toes. Yeah,
it's growth. And that it does. It keeps us younger, and I would say this, that if you're doing Orthoke, you're going to have challenges no matter how many years of experience you have with Orthoke, right? You're going to meet those cases, and you should say thank you when you do, because it gets you to start thinking.
But you'll say thank you in a year.
It's sometimes a tough thing to go through, but you really have to really appreciate it, because it just shows you how we're all human. And we need to learn. We can still learn more, and that's the place I always want to be in, learning more. So if I can,
me too.
So,
Well, Cary, thank you very much. Are you coming to Vision
welcome.
by Design?
Oh my God, yes, I'll be
All right,
there.
great, great. So finally, maybe we'll give each other a hug. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking the time to
Well,
to talk to our listeners, to kind of educate them on your experience. And again, on a personal note, and I mean this very sincerely, I thank you personally, because I don't know if everyone appreciates what you've sacrificed in a good part of your life to allow our lives to be much better. So to that end,
thanks.
thank you very much.
And thanks for your contributions, Nick. I mean, you've done amazing things for our profession. It's really appreciated. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on this journey without you.
Well, thank you. You've been listening to the Dare to Be Different podcast, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.